Hi everyone. For today's lesson, we are going to need a pair of scissors. You guys are also going to refer to your algebraic expressions foldable. So I want you guys to go ahead and take the time. Go ahead and just cut around this boldface line, and then there should be a backside. It should be lined up, so you should be able to cut out just the boldface. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting. So anything that's actually bold, you're going to be able to cut. So once I get my sides here, you're also going to see that these little flaps are also bolded. So that's what else you want to actually cut as well with your scissors. So what I mean by that, these little ones right here, and you only want to cut to that dotted line. Okay, so now you guys should have everything cut right here. Again, these little flaps should only be cut up to the dotted line right here. So now what we're going to do, we're going to fold on the dashed lines, and we actually cut where the solid lines were. Okay, if you guys have a notebook that you're going to be using, or just even a blank piece of paper, line paper or blank, you're going to glue this section of it to your interactive notebook. We aren't going to glue it just yet. We're actually going to flip this over, and we're going to fold it on those dotted lines so that we can see our actual algebraic expressions here. So go ahead and fold on the dotted lines. And then each of these will come down. And they're going to be kind of tucked under that algebraic expressions symbol. So if you guys at any point if I'm going too fast through this video, please make sure you guys pause it, and like if I'm going through fast while you're cutting, anything like that, just go ahead and pause it and wait till you are done to press play. Okay, so now I have everything. It should be like this. This is actually the bottom part that's folding up on our expression here. And then we have our 3x squared plus 4 that when we flip it up will be on the top. So we're going to go ahead and fill this in now. So our first value, go ahead and pick any color that you actually want in your whatever you're coloring with. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that this color is going to match whatever our actual definition is. So I happen to have purple. You're going to go ahead and color in that 3. And then we're going to identify what this 3 actually is in an expression. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we actually see that the word is a coefficient. So on this coefficient, this is a number multiplied by a variable. Multiplied. Okay, a number multiplied by a variable. And that again is what a coefficient is. So I'm just going to go ahead and color in the coefficient, since that was what this actual letter 3 represents, is a coefficient, a number multiplied by a variable. Okay, so now go ahead and choose your next color. We're going to do x squared. So we're going to go here on that term. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my next color, and I'm going to go ahead and color that in now. And then we're going to define that once I'm done coloring the front of this. So go ahead and flip this up. This is a variable now. So this is an unknown value represented by a letter. An unknown value represented by a letter. And so in this case, it happens to be our x. That is our variable. Okay. So then we're going to go down and pick a different color. We're going to do our plus sign here. I'm going to go ahead and color that plus sign right here. And this is called the operation. So the operations that we can have are addition. We can also have subtraction. We can have multiplication. We can have division. So you guys are just going to write these in words. So we just have addition, subtraction, So when I ask you what operation is happening or occurring, you're going to list one of these options here. Squeeze that multiplication in there, and then division. Okay, go ahead and color in. That's called an operation. Any of those plus, negative, divide, multiply signs. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do our next one. So on this one, number 4, go ahead and color that number 4 here. And then this one is going to be our constant. So when we flip that over, go ahead and color in constant as the same color as that number 4 that you had. And then this is a number that stands alone, which means that there is no variable next to it. So let's just make that like a little hint. No variable, which was our letter, next to it. Okay, so a number that stands alone, which means that there was no variable actually next to it. Okay, so now we're actually going to write everything that we just had right here, the 3x squared plus 4. We're going to go ahead and write that in this rectangle right here. So try and write it still below what each of them represent. So 3, 3. And then we had our x squared. And then we have our plus sign. And then we have our 4. So we want to go ahead and make sure that if you have the same colors, so our coefficient, this one represented our coefficient, you can either write it in the same color that you did that number. We can also drag an arrow down, or if you even flip it up over, you know that that's the coefficient, which is a number multiplied by a variable. Okay, then my x squared, or just the x, was the variable here. So my x there is the variable. That 2, though, is actually our degree. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a different color because we haven't defined what degree was yet. So this is going to be the highest exponent. And then I'm going to go ahead and label this color brown because that's what color I just wrote that in. You guys can also draw little arrows here if you want, saying that happens to be the highest exponent on there. Okay, so now we've defined what a degree is, the highest exponent, and then that was our degree of 2. I'm going to go ahead and highlight my plus sign as green because that's what I know was the operation there. And then number 4 was my constant, which was the number that's completely by itself here. So again, you guys can go ahead and write those in the colors that you actually did them in up there. And then we're going to define our last 2 terms here, or our definitions for these words. So a term, this one is the combination of constants and or variables. Zoom in a little bit more. Combination of constants and or variables separated by an operation. Okay, so this thing right here, I'm going to use black because that's what I just wrote it in. This is actually a term. This is one term. And then this is that we have, then we're all of a sudden separated by our operation here. And then this is my second term. Okay, so those are our terms, a combination of constants and or variables separated by an operation. And then now we're going to go ahead and fill out our last definition here. So an algebraic expression, which is when we have the entire thing here. So an algebraic expression would be this entire thing. Okay, so what we're going to have, this is a mathematical phrase I'm going to write in black so you guys can see better. A mathematical phrase that includes numbers. I'm abbreviating numbers with the little hashtag symbol or the pound sign, and operations. So numbers, variables, and operations. Okay, so again, this is a mathematical phrase that includes numbers, variables, and operations. So now you guys have your foldable here. You have all the terms that we're going to be working with. So again, if you guys were to close this down, fold that up, it says algebraic expressions. You guys can go ahead and color this in if you would like to, just to make it even more colorful. You guys can go ahead and do that. Take your time on coloring if you'd like. But what you're going to do now is this is the part you're going to glue. Or you could even tape it into your notebook or even a piece of paper in your binder. Okay, so now I'd like to have you guys use this and we're going to go over some examples. So keep this out so we can go over some examples here. So now what I want to do, I'm going to help you guys identify certain parts of this expression. We're going to be using these following examples. So here I'm going to be highlighting stuff as we go here, just because I want you guys to make sure that we know what we're actually looking at and talking about. So if you look at this one first, so this is the 9x squared. So we want to identify each of these terms down here, like what's going on. So just in this one section first, let's go through this one at a time. So variables. What I would like you guys to do is to go ahead and write this on a piece of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of paper as well, just so I can show you guys my end result of what we did here. So if I have the 9x squared, I'm going to go ahead and let's actually highlight these things differently. So you guys are writing these down, but I'm just going to highlight them just so that you guys can see what I'm actually doing and writing, because I can't show you the same thing. So here we're just going to color coordinate these. And then I will go over them with you guys. So you guys can go ahead and write these 3 problems down while I am color coordinating them. Okay, so there's only these 3 problems. So right now, this 9 right here, that 9 is actually going to be the coefficient. The x is a variable, and then we have the squared, which is our degree. Okay, maybe I'm going to write these down so you guys can see the final product. So number 1, we have, let's actually just write variable. So our variables that we have in number 1 are x and y. Our coefficients we have in number 1 are 9, -5 only. Make sure you're writing that -5. Our constants we have for number 1 is just that variable by itself. If you guys look in your foldable, it's going to be the variable or the letter by itself, which is number 2. And then we have the number of terms that we actually have. So if we look in our definition here, if you guys are using this, the number of terms that you actually have, remember what a term is, it's separated by this addition sign or any operation. So if you look on here, we actually have one term here because there's a negative sign right there. Then we have another term right here because there's an addition sign right here. And then that's our third term. So we actually have 3 terms that were being separated by 2 operations. So those operations that were being used in that number 1 were a negative sign and a positive sign, so subtraction and addition. And then our highest exponent, that degree, was our exponent of 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just scan over here real fast so you guys can see this. Go ahead and write this down. If you guys are writing this differently, that's totally fine. I'm just going to do the same thing for number 2 and 3 like this as well. So again, we have the 9x squared. Let me actually share the screen over here so that you guys can see this. Okay, so now you guys can kind of see a little bit better what I'm actually writing down. So this was number 1. Variables are x and y. Coefficients were 9 and -5. That's the number in front of the variables right here, 9 and -5. The constants were our numbers by themselves, which is 2. Number of terms that are being separated by the operation signs. So I have 1, 2, 3 terms. Our operations that we had were subtraction and addition. And then our degree was the highest exponent right there, and that's going to be our 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do number 2 now so you guys can follow along, see if you guys are getting this stuff. You can even pause me if you want to try it on your own. And instead of me writing this again, I'm just going to kind of go straight across. So for our variables that we actually have, so we only had x as our variable. Our coefficient that we had are the numbers in front of the variable. So there's actually a little invisible -1 or a 1 in front of that, but it happens to be negative. And then our constants we have, a number by itself is number 5. The number of terms we have are 2 because we only actually have one operation there. So 2 terms, they happen to be -x and 5. And then our operations that we have are just addition. And then our degree, if there's like no number in front of it or no number up above here, it's actually a degree of 1. That's a little invisible 1 above that variable. The constant has a degree of 0. Okay. Degrees are different than your exponents. Okay, so go ahead and double check that you got number 2 right. And then I'm going to skip down to number 3. So our next problem that we have over there, we have a negative 6a plus b plus 7y to the third power. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and check off those lists as well. So if I have my variable, those are all the letters, so a, b, and y. We're just going to list all of these. Then my next thing, we have a coefficient. That's the number in front of the variable. So -6. Don't forget about that 1 right there in front of that b. And then we still have that 7 there as well. Coefficient, now we're on our constant. That's the number by itself. Oh, there happens to be a variable in all of our terms. So please don't leave this blank. So I'm going to think you don't know what you're actually talking about. So go ahead and put NA, or you could put none. I'm okay with either one. And then we had our constants, and then we have our number of terms. So our number of terms, again, are separated by each of the operations. So I have 1, operation, stop. 2, operation, stop. And then 3. So then that means I have 3 terms, and these happen to be those 3 terms. The next thing was those operations that actually separated our terms. So I happen to have the pluses right there. And you don't need to write things twice. You just need to write it once. We don't need to list it out twice. So there's a plus sign. And then our last thing was our degree. Well, here we have an exponent of 1, an exponent of 1. Oh, here is the 3. So again, it's the highest degree. So we have a degree of 3. All right, you guys, so that is it for this set of notes. Make sure you have each of those values all set up correctly and everything. And if you have any questions, you're going to move on to the worksheet. It's just a front and back worksheet, so I will be checking to make sure you guys are understanding this. And please, please, please ask questions if you have them. All right, have a good day, you guys.